Big news. Get sponsored with Streamlabs. Sponsorships are live in desktop. What? Campaigns are US only for now. Okay. Why are you sending me things about this? We're gonna do the same tags as the campfire stream. Let's name Miku's site. Oh my god. Hi, Cow. Hi, Kraken. How you guys doing? This video... Oh, is set to not made for kids. Okay. I was about to say, it's definitely not... Oh, I could say it's made in Canadian English. America, America und Panzer Girl is all my other sites. Nice. Well. Hey, Wef. Comment ça va? Wilku says that my competition has arisen. Isn't Wilhelm a place in Skyrim? That's Windhelm. Wilhelm is a... If I search up the name Wilhelm, it gives me a lot of different people. Wilhelm's a German given name, a cognate of the English name William. I didn't know that. Wilhelm von Poop is Mr. Poop. There is poop there. You are welcome. It sounded familiar. It should. Hey, Wilku. So my competition has arisen, huh? I'm no longer the second most popular Shark Vtuber. I'm back to the third. This is unacceptable. We need to get higher. And that's why we're making lore. That's not the only reason. I just kind of wanted to. Jump scare! She's not a shark. Woo! Then we win by default! Nice! What was that? I don't know what you're talking about. She's a catfish. What does this one do? Oh. What was that? I activated a tactical nuke. It's where I put myself in a microwave to hide from the enemy. So, one sec. I'm going to send a message to my editor. Oh. Actually, no. What did he just send me? I'm muting. It's playing Funky Town. Ah, shit. The message he sent it with, does this make you dance? I played this. So, we have a mission today, like an actual one. I want to make some sort of cool thing to show the tactical ingenuity of Peddles and Wilhelm von Poop. So, there's a couple different ways we could do this. Now, initially, my thought was, oh, we'll just do a freaking Warhammer 3 thing. Why not? You know, just set up an army that best represents what we'd have, set up an army that best represents what we'd be going up against, and just play it out there. And I was going to have Greg help me out for it. It was going to be good. And then I tried it. Problem is, unless I mod the fuck out of it, or like really stack it in my favor, that's not winnable. Unless he's just completely playing along with shit. But then it's not fun. So I kind of stepped away from that idea. Then I was, okay, who did that? Oh my god! That's the editor. That's the cool dude. Hell yeah. Maybe demonstrate with a diorama. Well, a diorama would be nice. But I remembered a while back, I got really into this channel called History March. And a couple others that are similar. And there's a couple really freaking neat things. And then we'll do a quick bit of research just to so you guys can see like what I'm talking about. But a couple other channels started doing similar things, and they put out tutorials on how to do it. Now, either I learn how to do that, or I pay someone to do that, wink wink, then I think that could be fucking cool. So, what do we want to learn? William the Conqueror. Medieval battles in chronological order. What's something that people won't get mad about despite happening a very fucking long time ago? Actually, which one is the Here Come the Peasants? Battle of Hemmingstead. Wait, what the fuck? I thought I was subscribed. Like, I've already liked the video. Now, I'd probably have to hire a proper voice actor for it, because otherwise you're going to have me. And, I don't know how well I can do that. Like, I can do a bit of acting, but my acting skills have gone really fucking far downhill. So, blah, blah, blah.
8 masters, each one representing one of the key families of the district that meet once a year. This is a rather unusual arrangement, considering that all nearby lands...
So he goes over, and they tend to do where it's like, half of this is just setting up...
Forces from the Holy Roman Empire and Denmark attack Dithmarschen.
Just practice a lot of voice acting. Yeah. I'm realizing turning it down for you guys does not make it quieter for me so I can think. But, like, I think this guy...
You get freedmen legionnaires. Here's 20,000 heavy cavalry in lamella armor, fought as cataphracts.
I want a voice actor like that. Who's this one? David McCallion. Huh. Yeah. This one, the Belisarius one, that's teaching the... Actually, this would be a good one for... the practicing a strategy for it, because again, this is against a numerically and like arms-wise superior force, and using the natural formations and what you have to make the best out of your situation. With him, they dug a bunch of holes. Hero Forge had shark people. Yeah, I had to use a frog for mine. It's unfortunate. But yeah, they dug trenches, and yeah, it halted a lot of the cavalry charge, except when the enemy noticed those, they started to funnel through, and once they funnel through choke points, they're a lot easier to control. Like, that's some cool shit. So I use Steel Series for my Stream Mix audio. Interesting. I'm going to be blunt. Most of what I have is held together with duct tape and cardboard. Anyways, like I was attempting to say before I sidetracked myself, they set up the world around it. They're like, yeah, this is the shit that was happening at the time. Give it up, plebs. And shit happens.
Plans to construct fortifications on Dithmarschen soil and pay 15,000 marks in recognition.
Pay up if you want to bask in my glow. You know you want it.
Autonomous folk refuse these requests. Using this as a casus belli, King Johann decides to bring great force to bear on the peasant republic. Johann recruits troops, not just from Schleswig-Holstein and Denmark, but from all the lands of the Kalmar Union. The Danish army consists of some 2,000 Schleswig-Holstein and Danish knights, about 5,000 infantrymen, many recruited from the common people of nearby Frisia, and perhaps 1,000 artillerymen operating several cannons. In addition, he hires...
Whoa, that says artillerymen! Fucking unwatchable. But yeah, they got Landsknechts, they got artillery and all that. And then it goes on, and it's like, yeah, this Eisenbrand dude, he's nothing special. He's a guy who doesn't want to pay more taxes.
On February 11th, 1500.
We're just going to let this play out.
From the southeast. Overconfident, the Danish force carries with it the Dannebrog, the national flag. On February 14th, they quickly march upon and occupy Meldorf.
I want to set the scene for it. This is very similar to the sort of situation that, lore-wise, we would be going into. We have a city, ours would be walled, thank you. We have fuck all for supplies and for munitions. We've got a far superior force coming in at us. Battle of San Martin in Argentina. Might have to give that a look, yeah. I've heard San Martin. God damn it. Is this... Jose de San Martin? Okay, Jose de San Martin, we did some studies on in school. We didn't cover him for a long time, but we did for a bit. Battle of the Alamo? No, I have too many Texans in my chat, and some of the things I would say would probably bother them a lot. So like I've said before, I have no interest in covering the Alamo on this channel.
Oldest town in Dithmarschen, where the annual ruling council meeting of 48 masters takes place. After Meldorf is thoroughly sacked...
Also, the Alamo didn't turn out well for the defenders. I'm here. I'm not dead. Oh, see, this is what I'm saying about fucking Streamlabs.
The town is put to the torch.
Yeah.
On February 16th...
So, for anyone who's not aware, the whole thing is that my character, Peddles, was basically sent to cause unrest in the region beforehand to make it a lot easier to subjugate for an invading force. After successfully doing that with a previous territory, expecting a promotion, he's instead told, yeah, no, you're locked into this role, so now go do it to this other place. That's bad, because a lot of fucking atrocities were committed. So he's like, you know what? Fuck this. Takes what men'll join him, takes what supplies he can, joins up with the defending force, and helps them mount a proper defense. Now, part of any sort of successful defense is knowing what your enemy actually fucking wants. In this case, the enemy is mainly looking for a territory to subjugate for the purpose of taxing and so forth. I hate to say it, that's almost exactly what's happening here. But like in this video, we won't get into real things, but I guess that's also what's almost happening here. Anyways, yeah, let's just
Johann
continue.
and Duke Frederick decide to move toward their next objective, the town of Heide, the largest town of the province. They expect little to no resistance from the Dithmartians, trusting in their superior numbers and training to brush aside the peasant army rumored to be gathering to oppose them. On the same day, the Danes...
Now, part of this is like, hey, enemies overconfident because they think they're going up against peasants. In our situation, enemies somewhat overconfident because they have reason to be. They've got a shit ton of troops, ammunition, so forth. We are dealing with, of course, I love my Kingdom Come Deliverance. It's basically 1403 technology. So you do have some, like, primitive handgunning things. You got a cannon or two if you're very lucky. But simple fact of the matter is, we're working with bows and swords largely, especially for the defenders. Bows and clubs, because we're not fucking dumb. Swords are bad, and words. I fucking love swords, for the record. We can get into that argument another day. Let's talk about killing people.
left Meldorf, Iserbrand's militia captures a Danish scout. After torturing the unfortunate man, they learn that the Danish invaders are advancing on Heide and will probably reach the town the next day. Iserbrand now decides to force a battle at the place of his choosing.
Man with gun beats everything in StarCraft 2. Yeah. I mean, man with gun tends to beat a lot of things, historically speaking. So, this is, instead of waiting to be besieged, they're sallying out to, pick the battleground. In our case, that's not happening. The enemy knows where we are. We've got a set amount of time to prepare. There's no running. And at best, we can set up, like, maybe some harassment ambushes or something. But the majority of the battle, I don't see happening anywhere but at the city.
There is only one usable road between Meldorf and Heide, elevated.
So, one usable road, because it's largely swampland. We're not dealing with largely swampland, we're dealing with mountainous terrain. Which is still pretty helpful, typically. Instead of mud, we're dealing with fucking cliff faces. But that does mean that if the enemy's corralled into one route, we have a fucking chance. And if you have a choke point, you choose how much gets through.
Above the surrounding farmland. A slight elevation dominates the otherwise flat landscape. Over the course of the next day and
the high ground, Anakin, with shitty terrain below the high ground.
Into the night, the peasant militia transforms this slight rise into an earthen defensive mound, effectively blocking any passage up the road.
And this is one thing that I think we'd have to use to our advantage. Like, I'm personally thinking we have multiple engagements set up like this, where it's like, okay, we have a overland trade route or road or whatever, and we transform it into not just shit terrain, but a temporarily defensive position that we can launch attacks. It'll have enough time for us to get some decent kills in, and we'll have an active egress route. We can either rotate in troops, but I don't think will have enough. I don't know. Let's just see what they
Finally,
did.
Iserbrand orders the sluice gates of nearby dikes open, flooding the land around the mound, in what can be considered an act of either desperation or clever planning. The Danish army leaves the ruins of Meldorf early in the morning of February 17. They are soon met by snow, with intermittent rain and hail and whipping winds.
Shitty weather. Weather's underrated.
As they proceed north on the elevated roadway, the invaders begin to notice that the farmland to either side of the road is waterlogged, nearly impassable to the 12,000 or so marching men. Finally, about noon, the Danes approach the town of Hemmingstedt and are met with a defensive mound blocking the road. A bit of reconnaissance reveals a force of several hundred militiamen occupying.
So you can see with the way they've got it set up, you have your defensive lines of ranged units, cannons off to the side of it, somewhat in line with the road. So even if you miss, you're going to hit something. And it's not directly in line with the center, so if they want to deploy their artillery, they have to deploy it on its side, which means you can largely hit them with whatever side it's open to. You've got a chance, is what I'm saying. You make yourself as inconvenient to attack as possible.
The battlements. The men of Dithmarschen are probably outnumbered at least 15 to 1. In a bit of bravado left over from the days of chivalry, the Black Guard's commander, Thomas Schlitz, sends forward a herald. He asks that the peasant army's strongest man come forward and fight him in a one-on-one, winner-take-all duel to avoid excessive bloodshed. Not unexpectedly, the offer is refused. By early afternoon, the battle begins.
Nice and cold and frozen water, tired, and in a choke position. That's right, because they caught them on a march. Whoever's moving comes in tired. And the thing I've always fucking said, your heroes die tired. And in this case, the bad guys, but, you know.
Cannon fire opens the engagement, but the Danish artillery only manages a few shots before they discover that their powder had been rendered wet and useless.
Wet powder. Beauty of the time period. And you're firing up against an elevated position, and I'm assuming that they would have properly fortified it as well with cover and that.
Useless by the rain and snow during the march. The pike and spear-wielding Landsknechts form the Danish front line. As they charge the Dithmarschen battlements, members of the Black Guard shout a battle cry. Look out, peasants, here comes the guard. The invaders.
So they do their charge. They charge down into the mud and attempt to charge uphill. You know what happens when you charge uphill? You fucking don't.
Storm the militia battlements, braving their cannon and musket fire.
That
Despite the
said,
ferocity
with the sheer amount of numbers, they've fucking, through sheer amount of numbers, this is something that the peasants can't win in the current position. Something has to change. Granted, they put up their gun on the side, which means that gun can strike directly into ranks. That's fucking good. And you have your guys above, so they can shoot down. Now, you should never shoot over your guys' heads. But you can. And you probably will.
of the initial attack, the farmers hold their ground. On the flanks, the Danish forces discover the shrewdness of Iserbrand. The flooded farmlands are now a freezing, sucking morass, the deeper channels pulling in heavily armed men to their deaths, drowning.
So, they literally made it a death trap. Fuck it, shoot through your men. Yeah. So, by flooding the area, you're giving off vibes like John Madden, but with war instead of football. Good, because I don't give a shit about football. But yeah, you modify the conditions to get a different result. In this case, the result is people fucking drowning by making everything fucking hard to move in. Your enemy's strength is, well, in pretty much everything, and one of that being heavy armor. So, you know what heavy armor doesn't like? Falling down and trying to get back up. You know what's a problem when you fall down? Water being on you or over you. Or drowning is what I'm attempting to fucking say. Whatever.
Drowning them in the freezing water. Observing the attack is faltering.
So what they're doing is, despite the fact they know they're gonna get hit, they're lessening that as much as they can by taking out as many troops as they can. The troops have to charge uphill. If they weren't tired before, they fucking are now. And with less guys. And that sort of psychological thing of, hey, my buddies are back there just fucking drowning. And I'm up here trying to stab a poor person. What are we doing, man? That now, obviously, with something of this size, it does tend to not get into your head as much. You know, you tend to push that aside in the heat of battle, but still, any little bit helps with this.
Iserbrand orders a flanking counterattack on the Danes. A small group of Dithmarschen militiamen leave the safety of their...
So yeah, Iserbrand is like, hey, so shit's good, but we can't do this forever. Like, if we just stay like this side's gonna collapse, these guys are gonna come up here, and we're just gonna get a three-way, and not in the fun way. So we need to change the tide somehow. So naturally, he's like, okay, well, let's charge downhill. We have our mass, we have that assisting us, that's cool. We're charging at these guys who are struggling to move. And then, once we take down them, we, in our very light and honestly probably no armor, can come and hit these fuckers on the side or in the flank.
Their battlements to attack the wavering enemy. The peasants shout their own battle cry. Look out, guard, here come the peasants. As they are wearing next to no armor, the peasants can maneuver over and around the sunken fields, using long poles to vault over the channels. But the Danes meet this counterattack, and the Dithmarschens fall back to their sheltering battlements.
So yeah, the Danes did the right thing. They had extra contingents on the side in case of getting flanked, and they used them. That's fucking smart. So he's like, okay, well, we can't fight them one-on-one. You have to retreat. So they run up. These guys are, I assume, covering them as best they can. The enemy doesn't have a shit ton of ammunition because, again, most of their powder's soaked. Now, unfortunately for the peasants, I see an issue here. I see a player that's not covered by another player. That's a football term, I think.
Over the next 2 hours, Danish attacks on the Dithmarschen mound intensifies.
And see now, we're seeing, like, and the guy said 2 hours. Now, granted, this is from the year fucking 1500. Don't know if timeline's exact, but the point still stands. This shit takes a while, and your heroes will die tired. Are you familiar with dirt cake, or is that just an American thing? I understand Canada's economy isn't the best right now, but we don't have to eat dirt yet. So, they're continuing firing. Only issue is, you're still heavily outnumbered. And while these guys up front, yeah, they're probably really fucking tired and they're starting to die, there's 10 guys to replace every single one of them. You can't win this. Unless
Answer this threat. Acerbrand sends another counterattack.
You know what's worse than fighting one guy? Fighting two guys. So, you send one contingent off to the side. It's hard to defend two areas at once. You see the shit in movies where, you know, it's like 3 guys on one? You know what happens when there's 3 guys on one? One guy fucking dies. That's... Now, I guarantee somebody's going to be like, well, this is some fucking example, or you can just spin to win, or what? I don't fucking know. The point is, it's fucking hard, okay?
Soon, the Blackguard is left in a desperate
I'm not very
situation,
well spoken
pressed by
right
the
now. I've
militia's
driven 10
counterattacks
hours
and the
today.
near fanatical resistance of the mound defenders, as well as the push of the Danish knights and infantry from behind. Seeing that the Blackguard is near breaking point,
This is not the case of more shit beats less shit. Yeah. More shit makes it easier to beat less shit. But prepared shit can beat more shit. And that's exactly what happened. So, Icebrand's like, okay, this flank, these guys are still holding on. They definitely can't do it forever. So what we need to do is either eliminate these guys entirely, or we need to get this over quickly. Because once these guys die, these Reds, they take the cannon. Now, you've just lost your main psychological artillery, along with actual artillery. And they can either capture that and fire it, or they can just fucking, you know, walk past it. Your guys are now surrounded by people who are up higher than them. Sharkman knows his shit when it comes to military strategy. That is false. I know my shit when it comes to cause and effect. This flank, they've got them on multiple sides. This tends to mean that this will be okay. Like, again, with a numerically superior force, you're gonna have your work cut out for you. But having more angles of attack is always better. So, like they said, the Blackguard's near breaking point. A lot of their guys are dying. They're fucking tired, and it's showing. So he's like, okay, what we need to do is get them to lose their shit and rout. We need them to run back. We need them to give up. We need them to do literally anything other than keep pushing. StarCraft 2 terms, Serral versus 5 Bronze League players. I have no idea what that means, but probably. Look, I only played StarCraft 1.
Wolf Icerbrand orders a third counterattack.
So yeah,
The result is devastating.
Before he tells us exactly what happened. What happened? God. Now, imagine you're one of these Blackguards. You're guys that are paid a shit ton of money to go out and do the most dangerous job, being the frontline guy. Okay, fair enough. You got your heavy armor, you've got your state-of-the-art weaponry, and you've been fighting for 2 fucking hours against some guys with pitchforks and clubs. And it's not going well. You're soaked, you're cold, half your buddies are dead. It's still raining, you are covered in mud, blood, and something else. And now you look over and see, oh, there's more of them coming around us. So what do you think is the best decision here? To keep on fighting, and hopefully these guys who are hanging back, not able to get in and help you yet, you're gonna sit there and hope that they magically find a way to come and lend a hand? Are you thinking that maybe all these peasants who have now been reinforced with more of them are going to give up? Or are you going to be like, hey, fuck this. Run, bitch, run.
nearly 3 hours of constant fighting in freezing water and inclement weather, the Black Guard's morale finally breaks. Seeing their elite unit trying to rout from the field, the remainder of the Danish army loses all cohesion.
And that's it. Psychological warfare is by far the most, and this is from someone who has never been in the actor of this character has never been in even a fucking fist fight. But psychological warfare from a historical standpoint is so fucking important. Because again, they didn't need to kill all these Blackguard. But they got them to think, okay, this is fucked. I don't want to be here. This ain't worth it. We aren't winning. They run around. Then the rest of the army looks and they see, oh my god, these fucking peasants have beat the shit out of these guys who have the reputation of being the most badass people on the planet. I don't want to fucking fight them. So you don't. You run the fuck away.
With only a narrow road to use, many of the men who had not been engaged tried to use the water-swollen farmland to retreat. Consequently, hundreds of Danish troops drowned in the rout.
And again, they're all freaking out. So some of them are like, okay, well, we have to run back through the choke point. So some of them try to get away in the water, not realizing, oh, that's how all these other guys died. What happened is they were constantly dying and they straight up gave up. What happened was they were put in an unwinnable situation with no reliable way to alleviate it other than running away. So that's what they did. From a logical standpoint, the Blackguard would have done the right thing, because the alternative is to fucking stand there and die. And again, like, meanwhile, the people behind them are like, hey, those are supposed to be the best of the best. They just got their asses handed to them. Do I want to be in line of fire of that? Nah. Now, granted, so I was right. Faker versus team of 5 Bronze League players. I assume I don't play League and never will, so I'm sorry, man.
While others are slaughtered by the avenging peasant militiamen who took no prisoners.
That's the other thing. Taking no prisoners. I don't think this will be reflected in my situation, but having, I don't know, if you put someone up against a wall, like if you back them into a corner and they know there's no fucking way out other than through you, they will do anything they can to get through you. But if you back them into a corner that they realize, oh, there's a little door here, they ain't gonna fight shit. They're gonna go through the door and they ain't coming back. So the whole take no prisoners and they're just killing anyone they can, that's the in military terms, that's the right thing to do here, because the enemy has a route of egress. If they didn't, fuck no. Be like, hey, yeah, we'll take prisoners. Shit's fine. All good. You know, like, you guys fought hard. Good stuff. We'll treat you relatively fairly, and by that I mean we'll put you in a fucking pen and stab anyone who gets too close to the edges. But still, like, it's better than getting stabbed right here and right now. But no, enemy can run, so they will run.
During the rout, many of the knights can't even manage to draw their swords, as they are beset by the rampaging militiamen, most of them falling from their horses and drowning in the freezing water under the weight of their armor. By 5:30 p.m.
Also, you'll notice in the diagram, they left their cannons behind. Which I think is something that will be reflected. Because that is fucking hilarious. It's also genuinely what happens, and without dipping into recent conflicts too much, let's just say it still happens to this day. Please do not mention very recent historical conflicts in the chat, for the record. That's why I'm not naming names on stuff. Then we jump over to the Battle of Dara. This is part 2, where Belisarius is like, yeah, no, shit's fucked, yo.
Army reached the outskirts of Dara. Observing the Byzantine battle order, it was obvious to Firuz that his army was the superior one. But
so, Firuz and Belisarius. I don't actually remember the context of this. I remember that Belisarius was put in charge of the city's defense, and he didn't actually have a lot of resources. So, yeah.
Seeing that Belisarius took up position in a narrow gap, he knew that he would either have to force the Byzantines back into the city and besiege them, or draw them out into the open. Firuz had 40,000 troops under his command. Some 15,000 infantry were made up of levied troops of poor training and little fighting ability, while another 5,000 were heavy infantry mercenaries, similar to the old Roman legionnaires.
And this is important. The Sasanians have 5,000 heavy troops, but then 15,000 of just dudes. Just dudes. So you've got a lot of liability there. A lot of units that just, they will rout easily, because they don't have the training, they don't have the experience, they are not as effective and not as brave as your typical unit. They don't know what the fuck to do. Keep that in mind.
His 20,000 heavy cavalry in lamella armor fought as cataphracts, possessing the ability to shoot from horseback and deal some of the most devastating frontal charges of their time.
Horseback archers are fucking cool. Enough said.
Lined up across the field, Belisarius rejected the idea of being besieged inside the walls of Dara, and made preparations for a pitched battle in front of the city.
And that, I think, is something we will take, because, like, the walls will still be there if this shit fails. Why would you literally put your back to the wall? Or, not even back again. I'm bad at fucking words right now. Shut up. But, like, ooh, nice emotes.
However, he faced two major problems. With 25,000 men at his disposal, he was significantly outnumbered, and most of his troops were inferior to their Persian counterparts.
See?
15,000 cavalry was his main force, divided between the two wings. Although experienced, most were outclassed by the Persian cataphracts, with his only crack-mounted units being the 1,200 Huns in the inclined center, and the 1,500 Buchalari serving as his most trusted personal elite regiment of mounted retainers.
No, we
held
can
in
go
reserve.
to this.
His infantry numbered 10,000 troops and were generally of poor quality, composed of frontier garrison troops, provincial forces, survivors from prior battles, and men that were hastily recruited from the countryside, some of whom had to be given basic archery training in the days before the battle to compensate for the low number of archers. Morale of the infantry was low due to continuous setbacks and defeats suffered against the Persians along the entire front, and Belisarius knew that if they were faced with a full-blown Sasanian cavalry charge, they would not hold for long.
So, he's going like, hey, we do not have the morale for this shit. And if these guys go all out, we die. That's all it comes down to. We fucking die. Historical general or something, you lose some spectacular battle, and centuries later you look down from the afterlife and see a cartoon shark color commentating your greatest defeat. Oh god. I realize now how greatly disrespectful this is. I'm not going to stop, but this is kind of a dick move, not even historically speaking, practically speaking. Dang. Oh well. Make yourself tiny on the ground.
To offset his army's deficiencies, the Byzantine commander had a long line of ditches dug along the entire line. The ditch was too wide for cavalry to jump over, designed to slow down the charge of the dangerous Persian cavalry, and multiple narrow crossings were created to serve as choke points.
So, a very important principle of engineering is assign a fail point or the system will assign one for you. Assign a fail point or the system will assign one for you. Our fail points are these choke points. If the enemy's going to get across, it's going to be at any of these points. The enemy is a system. If we do not have any of these, we can't actually tell where the enemy's going to go for. We set up clear targets for them so we know what to react to. Because if you set up full ditch, what's going to happen? I don't fucking know. And I don't think Belisarius would either. I think what would happen is they'd just fucking go. They'd say, okay, there's not really a tactical way to approach this. We either siege this place out, we find another route, or we just fucking go. Now, that's if they're dumb as rocks, like me. They'd probably think of something. But I didn't. Instead, they're like, okay, we have these points that they're going to look at these and be like, oh, these ditches are terrible, but there's ways across. So we're going to aim for those. We know what they're aiming for.
The infantry trench was positioned further back to protect the unreliable footmen, where they could be supported by missile troops stationed on the city walls.
That is another amazing point with it. Like, this little divot in the center, it's like, okay, we have it close enough that the guys on the fucking walls who are protected and most likely won't be dying in this fight can just rain down shots. We're making a little fucking arena here for them to fire down into. And with our troop deployment, the towers here can largely shoot towards the back of it. These ones on the side, they can shoot in without needing to go over a lot. They'd retreat, come back. Makeshift yes, actually. And honestly, with the sort of tactical stuff that Fruz kind of showed, he'd probably find a way. Like, these are bait. That's all it is. These bridges are bait. Because otherwise, he's going to come in, and he's going to come in balls swinging. I don't know why I said balls swinging, but you know what? His balls are now swinging.
With the Byzantines firmly entrenched, it was up to the Sasanians to make the first move. Most of the day passed with no action, but towards the late afternoon, elements of the Persian right wing advanced towards the enemy at a steady pace. It is unclear if the cavalry officers wanted to test the resolve of what they perceived to be an inferior foe, or if Firuz gave the order for a probing attack, but the charging cavalry soon closed in. After a short clash, Belisarius's cavalry fell back, with the Persians in hot pursuit.
His balls were indeed swinging when running into battle. I guess that is how physics works. So what we're seeing here is the superior cavalry units beating the shit out of the inferior ones. Oh no, they're going back. What's this? A fucking bridge right over to the side so we can slam into them. So if you make an advance, now you're opening yourself up.
Then came the signal for the archers. Soon after, the Byzantines
so they fire. These archers are firing in here. They got no fucking cover here.
Retreat and counterattack. The Sasanians retreated back to their own lines, trying in turn to lure the Byzantines into giving chase.
So what they're trying to do is, and this was a pretty fucking common thing, they'd come in, they'd kill a couple of them, and they back off. Now, what tends to happen is you're a soldier who's just been attacked, you survived, you see the enemies backing away, you're like, hey, we can fucking kill them right here, right now. Let's do it. And you chase after them. And then you chase them out into the field with your buddies, and then you get shot to hell and back by everyone. It happens all the time. Hell, most of Napoleon's, like, his whole thing was a feigned retreat. He'd have his guys run up, attack, and then they'd run back. And the enemy'd be like, oh, they're running, boys. We can get them. They'd follow, and then Napoleon would have a bunch of people hiding on the sides to just close in and beat the shit out of them. That's what tended to happen. Or just to pull them in range of artillery. It's fucking smart.
But Belisarius kept his men from going beyond the trenches. Realizing that he will have to grind down the enemy, Firouz sent word to request reinforcements.
So, the whole retreat thing didn't work. So now Firouz is like, okay, we're actually gonna have to fucking fight this. Our charge here didn't destroy them. So we know that they're here to fight. This isn't a bluff. And they're good enough to withstand that. And we could see they were fucking smart. Firouz isn't dumb. Like, he knows he's getting into something bad. So he's like, okay, we're gonna need some help. But you can't just sit there. I mean, you've got the psychological thing on your men of getting complacent or, you know, just getting fucking tired. If the enemy counterattacks while you're really fucking tired, you die tired. That's how it always works.
Seeking to galvanize the troops, a Persian champion marched out from the line, challenging anyone in the Byzantine army to...
I'm gonna be blunt, I don't know if this actually happened, but it probably... Honestly, yeah, it probably did. Like, I hear these stories of, oh yeah, a guy walks out and he's like, oh, will anyone fight me? Send your champion. And then they duke it out. And it does fucking nothing. But it's like, they do it to raise morale. It's just, I don't know. It's such a high risk, no reward thing. Because it's like, oh, yeah, you're so tough that you can beat the shit out of a guy in single combat when you've mentally prepared yourself for it and chosen the ground.
Single combat. A young man by the name of Andreas, who was an attendant of one of the Byzantine officers and had been training with Belisarius's bodyguards, accepted the challenge. In several seconds the duel was over, with Andreas walking back to his position to the cheers of the troops. But halfway back to his line, a second Persian stepped forward. Unbidden, Andreas again obliged the challenger. Not long after, the fight was over. Winning in single combat for a second time, Andreas returned to his line a hero.
Like, something like that is just fucking funny. Who will fight me? I'll fight you, boy. Kills him. Okay, well, guess I'm gonna go back. Wait a second. Okay, fine, you too. Okay, we're going home. Like, again, it is high risk, no reward, because these guys already believe they're the shit. You have nothing to, or not nothing to lose, but you have the morale advantage. You're just chilling out here. These guys, the only advantage they've really got is that, you know, the alternative's death. So, like, you know they're gonna fight like hell. But some might falter or see if they can get away. And then, yeah, these guys, meanwhile, it's like, okay, we're up against some guys who can kick our asses. So then watching one of their guys walk out there and slaughter two of them that were confident enough to straight up challenge him. Like, what the fuck is the point of offering a duel in this case?
His reinforcements arrived from Nisibis. Much of the second day of the battle passed in negotiations between the two commanders. It seemed that both were trying to reach a peaceful resolution.
Okay, I retract part of my statement. I didn't realize he was actually waiting the whole time. So, that makes a little sense, because now your morale's fading if you're just camping out, typically. So they're like, okay, well, we're sitting here, we're just camped out, we're staring at these guys. I don't know what I'm fucking doing here, man. And then your buddy goes over, and he's like, hey, watch this. I'm gonna kill one of them. And then in theory, if he did, and he goes and kills, you have a laugh, you high five, and then you sit back to your tent for the day, and that's your excitement. But now, they've tried to negotiate, because Belisarius, he doesn't want, well, nobody wants to fight here. At the end of the day, if you can work out a surrender beforehand, it's better for everyone, typically. Assuming the terms are honored. Usually. But, no, Farouz's request for more guys has worked. So we'll see how that works out.
Although it is quite possible that Farouz was trying to buy time until all of his reinforcements arrived.
That's true.
As the day progressed, it became apparent that the flowery language of diplomacy will accomplish nothing. Finally, Farouz wrote to Belisarius, telling him to prepare a bath for him in Daraa, so he could relax after his coming victory. Negotiations were over. By the third day, Farouz received 10,000 reinforcements, including several thousand of the feared immortals, bringing his force up to 50,000, a 2-to-1 numerical advantage over the Byzantines.
Now, the whole thing is you're supposed to have a 3-to-1 advantage before you can assume automatic victory. I don't know who came up with that. I don't know if it's actually an established thing or if I've just heard that from a couple dudes who served and took it as gospel, but you know what? That's probably what happened, so never mind.
Emboldened, he resolved to attack. His plan was to utilize his superior cavalry to overwhelm the Byzantine flanks and then double envelop the static center.
So this is a solid plan here. Like, you already know that while these guys are badass, they can't handle 2 fucking waves of some of your best units. And archers or not, you're getting through there. So if you can eliminate these flanks, take out the leadership, tends to make guys crumble a lot quicker. Also, then you have them fully circled, and as we've established, you attack on more angles, you get more hits.
Suspecting that Belisarius would strengthen his left flank after yesterday's skirmishing, Varus sent the Immortals to join the attack on the now weakened Byzantine right flank.
So yeah, like the guy just said, he assumed that after some of these guys died, that Belisarius would be like, okay, you guys just send some of your dudes over here. So now these guys, while some of them are hurt, they're also more ready for this shit. And it's probably a little stronger than this side, because he's assuming, okay, they probably need some extra guys just to keep the morale up there. Because he knows if his guys run, he's fucked.
Archers moved forward, with orders to keep the opposing projectile troops occupied during the cavalry charge.
So, again, archers forward, and their sole fucking purpose is to distract. Yeah. Cause enough trouble that they're shooting at you instead of the main attacking force. And, yeah, worst case scenario, you get some kills while they're trying to shoot the actual enemy. Or, you know, it works. They're firing at you. You're a small target. You should be fine.
Persian infantry remained largely static, but moved slightly up the field, lagging behind the archers. When the two lines came into range of one another, the battle began with a heavy exchange of projectiles. The Persians maintained a heavier volume of projectiles, but a strong wind blew against them, largely negating their superiority in archery.
What was that? More weather? Oh my god! Also, when I'm saying that I want to do something like this, I'm literally saying I just want something like this to show a layout of like how Peddles and Wilhelm would use their forces to take on the third as it attacks inward. I think that'd be fucking cool.
Varus ordered his cavalry not to charge at full gallop, but to approach the enemy at a steady pace, knowing that the trenches will break up the momentum of the attack.
So, Varus is being really fucking smart here. He's like, okay, if we try to just sprint ahead like we did before, these trenches, it's just going to mean we have to stop and funnel in through the choke points, because you can't jump that shit. Also, by keeping a steady pace with the infantry, then you can hit them with everything at the same time. A hard offense is worth a lot more than you'd think.
As the wall of armored cavalry methodically approached the trenches, Byzantine troops stood with bated breath. Looking to his left, Belisarius could see the frantic struggle. Riders impaled on spears and struck down from their horses.
So, one thing, Belisarius has positioned himself not behind the walls, not up on the walls. He's down in the fucking fray. Hey, Monster King! I love these little greetings we're having, man. Like, it makes me smile. So yeah, I hope you're having a freaking good day too. But yeah, he's down here. He's able to quickly relay information. They don't got fucking phones. This is 530 AD.
As the Persians advanced in full force. Pressed too heavily, the Byzantines could not disengage, and they were slowly being pushed back.
So, Varus's guys are doing really well. And like I said, the Byzantines can't actually properly disengage. They're just backing away because what the fuck else can you do? So they're getting pushed back by sheer numbers and strength. So Belisarius is starting to panic a little, but not too much.
Meanwhile, the main Sasanian assault on Belisarius's right broke through several sections of the trench. Peruz's...
So, these guys are just holding on to this section, but over here, no, they're fucked. Like, the extra contingency here has really helped push through. It's not looking good.
His reserves, the elite mounted immortals, with their riders and horses clad in armor,
the immortals
were grinding down everything in front of them. Seeing that his right is hard-pressed, Belisarius sent the Huns from his center-right to charge the Persian inner flank.
So by having these little bridges in here, you've got quick and easy access. Because if you try to attack from this front part, okay, you're just adding to a wall that's being currently pushed back. That's not very helpful in the moment. But here, we're hitting them from the side. We're getting more fucking angles. Who would have thought that would help? Oh yeah, literally everyone. This is good. And Firuz's thing of keep the archers busy is still working. Because otherwise, these guys would have been... They would have had a lot more trouble pushing upwards if they're constantly getting shot from the side. So that was a really smart move on his play.
Hoping to slow down their advance. On the left, however, was where the Byzantine commander set a trap for the Persians.
Oh.
He signaled a contingent of several hundred...
Okay, see, that's fucking cheating. But yeah, no, he had a couple hundred guys just chilling out in the trees. And yeah, give the signal, they fucking charge out. And now these guys are caught in a three-way. And again, not a fun kind. So now you've got that psychological thing of being surrounded, except you've got a clear route of egress. It's a choke point, but it's a route of egress. And you've got these fuckers coming out of the trees. You thought you were all good? No, not anymore. That psychological value cannot be understated or overstated. Whichever one is better.
100 cavalry, until now hidden in the trees on the hillside, to charge the Sasanians, and sent the Huns from his center left to attack from the other side. The reason Belisarius set an ambush on his left was that he thought that the main Persian thrust would come there. But now, with his other...
So yeah, Belisarius, he was assuming that the Persians, having their camp here and everything, would just blast through this way. But they didn't. They sent their immortals on the other side. So now he's in a bit of a fucking problem, and a big one at that. Also, keep in mind, Firuz still has a bunch of guys just chilling here. Like, he's still got more to spare. Belisarius, this is it. He's played his card. Yeah. So, good fucking luck.
The flank collapsing, he hurriedly turned and led his own elite reserves to aid the troops on the right, who were by now in a fight for their life.
So now he's like, okay, well, last thing you ever want to do is get your leadership directly involved in the combat. Like, it can help your men with the psychological side, which again is very important. However, if they see you get fucking shanked, I mean, I guess it's not your problem because you've gotten fucking shanked, but still.
Having suffered heavy losses, some of the contingents held their ground, while others were near breaking point. Desperate to get there in time, Belisarius galloped straight for the Persian inner flank. The momentum of the charge split through the enemy line, with some of the Sasanian contingents in the front continuing to hack their way forward, while those further back were now interlocked with Belisarius's retinue.
And I'm assuming for the record, I don't know for sure, but typically the Lord's retinue tends to be the best equipped guys, because, you know, you want your fucking leadership protected.
Across the field, Firuz's attack was now dead in its tracks. With his forces on the Byzantine left almost entirely surrounded, communications were severely impacted, and the chain of command was collapsing.
So again, Belisarius has the advantage of being able to be there and give direct commands. Also, he's got the home turf, so he can tell his guys beforehand where to look for shit, what the general plan is, so forth. Firuz comes here and he's got to make it on, not on the spot, but you know. And like they said, the main attack, it's failed now. This side has been cock-blocked by these gents coming out of the trees. And this side, despite the immortals being there, that surprise charge from the Lord himself and everything, that kicked ass. So, Firuz is in a very bad position now.
Sasanian officers found it increasingly difficult to control the men.
And yeah, now that he's still over here, his guys over there are getting separated. They're getting the shit kicked out of them. It's a terrible situation for them. So, how do you effectively relay commands? Because I'm pretty sure your guys aren't looking for your flag signaler or some dude blowing a horn or yelling or doing arm signals or whatever the fuck you're doing. I think they're busy being surrounded by 4 dudes.
Before long, panic set in, and the Persian right flank fled in disarray, leaving some 3,000 dead on the field.
So, right flank is starting to run, and because Belisarius kept those parts open, they have a way to run, and they will take it. And that means now this, or some of these guys, can break off and start taking out the actual problems.
Some of the Byzantine units turned to help the other flank, so the pursuit of the retreating horsemen was brief, as the Byzantines stuck to their commander's plan to keep the position on the edge of the trenches.
And yeah, keeping position. These dudes go back here and they don't chase them out. They stay behind cover. That's fucking smart.
On the right, Belisarius' flanking attack finally stopped the Persian heavy cavalry juggernaut. During the bitter struggle, the Persian second-in-command was struck down, together with his standard-bearer, causing the Sasanians to quickly lose heart.
Standard-bearer, the guy who's, like, carrying the flag and shit. So, yeah. The second-in-command just got beaten up. So now, you've got no leadership here. Was that a Wilhelm scream? Yes. Yes, it was.
Many could not break out and were slaughtered then and there, while others managed to find their way back to the main line. Belisarius again restricted his troops from pursuing the enemy. Despite achieving a stunning victory, he knew that the Persians still outnumbered his army. Thus, it would have likely been a bloody fight to get into the Sasanian camp to loot it.
So, Belisarius orders his men to, again, they've killed a lot of us, but if they want to run, let them fucking run. And they do. They stay in the behind the trenches. So, they're still protected. If Firuz wants to go for another round, he can fucking try. If you come back, I will taunt you a second time.
But could not have been much less than 5,000 dead or wounded.
So, Byzantine's defenders lose about 1/5 of their army in this. Pretty bad.
The Persians, on the other hand, suffered up to 10,000
So they lose a fifth of their army. Pretty bad.
casualties.
Especially because they're double strength.
2-1, Belisarius's tactical masterclass secured one of the rare victories in a pitched battle for the Byzantines against the Sasanians in recent years. But the war went on. Although Justinian's two commanders in the east achieved brilliant tactical victories at Daraa and Satala against vastly superior Persian armies, a year later, Kawad mounted further offensives, defeating Belisarius at Callinicum and laying siege to Myriropolis. Justinian attempted to offer terms, which Kawad rejected. It seemed like the end of the war was nowhere in sight. But then, in 532, Kawad I died, and Justinian's envoys reopened negotiations with the new Sasanian king of kings, Khosrow I. With the new Persian ruler needing to secure his position on the throne, the two sides signed a peace treaty, under which all occupied territories were returned, and Justinian agreed to pay 11,000 pounds of gold. As for Flavius Belisarius, despite his defeat at Callinicum, he remained one of the ablest generals in the empire. And in the years to come, he will spearhead Justinian's ambitious military campaigns to restore the Roman Empire to its former glory.
Okay. Whoever edits mine, don't do that. But yeah. That's the shit I like. This is why I started playing that fucking Warhammer Total War. Because you can do things like this. Granted, you can also have flying units and magic and shit, but that's not the point. Like, these sorts of tactics have validity in a game like that. It's cool. I'd totally do that. Yeah, you're still at the top of the list of people I'd consider hiring for it. People mentioned Belisarius. I mean, yep. I guess. Yeah. Only for a few seconds, though. That face was there too long. Oh, yeah.
Glory. Credit goes to our awesome
It's still there.
Like this one possible. Consider joining them to support our work.
It stays to the end.
Also support us
it's
by
still there.
To our channel and
no, don't have it for the end slate.
Our new videos are released.
Oh my god.
And as always,
there. Oh man. Oh, I fucking love that. So, Battle of Hemmingstead, the Battle of Dara. Should we see what else we can learn here? Yeah. How do I X? That's how. Because I think we can learn a fair bit. It's like that face from The Exorcist, just standing there awkwardly staring instead of blink and you miss it. Yeah. Macedonia. End of the Viking Age. Mortimer defend Hastings of Southern Europe. I think I've watched this one. Apparently I have. Civitate?
It is the early morning of June 18th, 1053. Somewhere in southern Italy, Pope Leo IX anxiously overlooks a meadow from the city walls. In front of the gate, his coalition army of Italian, Lombardian, and Swabian soldiers had set up camp, fully intending to meet the Normans in
I'm getting a lot of spam bots lately.
The Normans had been a welcome source of hired swords for local Lombardian and Italian lords, and their mercenary services were even retained by the papacy and the Holy Roman Emperor. However, the Normans used their success on the battlefield to expand their territory and influence across southern Italy. Many of their former employers now saw them as a threat.
Would you say as a shark you're
As
good
the
at
people
naval
stand
warfare?
aflew above
Nope.
The formations of
Nope.
the coalition.
Scientifically speaking, I am dog shit at it. Yeah. Boats are scary. Boats have trouble turning. And if your boat goes down, you have a bad time. That's about all I know about boats. And if you get on someone else's boat and they're dead, then you have another boat.
A much smaller Norman army of grizzled veterans appeared on the horizon, commanded by the famous Hauteville brothers. Having received reports that the Normans were malnourished due to lack of supplies, the coalition leadership was confident. The Pope smarted that Italy lacked its freedom because of these wicked men who pressed Apulia under their yoke, insisting that now was the time to expel them once and for all. But before we continue, I'd like to welcome back a returning...
No, I don't care about your sponsor. So, here to see your world building and totally not to sidetrack myself. That's valid. What we're doing mainly here, Payne, is research. We did some very good stuff about the battles of other things that I don't remember. Hemmingstedt and Dara. So yeah, been getting ripped to shreds for the past hour. Oh, fair enough.
The early 11th century saw a steady stream of Normans arriving in southern Italy. Some say they came as pilgrims to worship the shrine of Saint Michael, the warrior saint at Monte Gargano in Apulia. Others claim it more likely that Pope Benedict VIII invited the Normans to help keep the Byzantine Empire in check.
See, the Normans were known as really fucking good mercenaries, so that's what they fucking did for a while. And then after a while, some of them were like, hey, why are we just mercenaries? Why can't we just take some of this shit?
Whatever the case, the warlike nature of the new arrivals was not lost on the local ruling elite, and the Normans quickly found themselves in demand as mercenaries by the squabbling petty Italo-Lombard kingdoms and dukedoms of Italy. Recruiting them alleviated some of the concerns posed by internal rivalries, but more importantly, these small kingdoms now had the ability to tackle the far greater threat posed by their powerful neighbors. The Holy Roman Empire to the north, the Byzantine Empire to the south, clinging on to their last territories on the peninsula, and the raiding pirates who operated from the ports of the Muslim-controlled Sicily. Simply put, the demand for premier mercenary troops was high and growing at a rapid pace, while the Normans were all too happy to service anyone with enough coins on hand. And attracted by the exploits of their countrymen, more Normans arrived every year from France by boat.
So now you have more and more Normans coming in because they're hearing, hey, there's a lot of fucking fighting here. They're paying good shit. Come on over. So they do. Like, it's only intelligent. Of course,
During a period when the Byzantine influence in the region was on the decline, as more and more of their military units were moved to critical theaters of war elsewhere. The Lombard lords who rose to throw off the Byzantine yoke often turned to giving territory to the Normans in place of payment for their services.
So they're like, hey, we can't actually afford to pay you. So you just own this shit now. They're like, okay, yeah. We own shit now. Only problem is, now they own shit.
This policy was effective in the short term, especially for the local lords that were running low on money but needed mercenaries to achieve their objectives. However, in the long run, this worked against the Lombard nobility. Giving land in exchange for military services paved the way for Norman adventurers to carve out their own territory in southern Italy.
Yeah.
And by the late 1040s, they had a secure foothold in southern Italy, as 3 distinct fiefdoms formed. The county of Aversa was held by Richard Drango. He was the nephew of the prior ruler, Rainulf II, upon whose death he was appointed guardian of Rainulf's son and heir, a baby only a few months old. But the infant boy mysteriously died.
Mysteriously.
Only a year later. Richard, now the last surviving member of the House of Drango, took over the fief. Drogo de Hauteville, commander of another prominent band of Norman mercenaries, exerted control over parts of Apulia from the Hauteville stronghold of Melfi.
So, long story short, the 3 brothers want to fuck shit up.
Were ruled by the emperor in Constantinople, as he sought to expand his own imperial influence in southern Italy at the expense of the Byzantines, and he banked on Drogo to do his bidding. Finally, Robert de Hauteville, the 6th son of Tancred, controlled parts of Calabria from his castle at San Marco Argentano, appointed to this position by his older brother Drogo. Known for his cunning, Robert was a physically intimidating figure and a capable commander, with a talent for inspiring his men. During his time in Calabria, he married well to a noble heiress, Alberada of Bonalbergo, and had received a dowry of 200 knights. Norman power in Italy...
I don't know how much of this sort of thing would be in mine, because it just... Like, we definitely have the start of it talking about the subjugation of the previous territory. But then we'd be like, okay, well, he did that and then do it again, but then this time didn't, and then you zoom in, and it's like, yeah, they did these different things to fortify and prepare and blah, blah, blah. Tarocco babies? Angry Pope stares at you, because I don't know what's happening.
It was clear that he had to prevent the formation of a strong and aggressive Norman domain. The Pope's first move was to appeal to his cousin, Emperor Henry III, for military aid.
So yeah, the Pope's like, okay, these Normans are kind of getting out of hand, so, like, can I do this?
But instead of sending troops, the Emperor commanded Leo to visit southern Italy and re-establish the freedom of the Church. On his way, the Pope heard tales of pillaged towns, Stories of the plundered countryside.
Angry Pope stares
The
at
Normans
Shark
took
Pope.
food, crops, and plow animals, and punished anyone who resisted by burning their vines and olive trees. Some said that not even the churches and monasteries were safe from Norman looters. Once at a meeting with Drogo, Leo asked that the pillaging of the countryside be stopped around Benevento, pointing out that the duchy was given to the church by Charlemagne some 2 centuries ago. Drogo understood that the fact that he was not visited by a papal delegation, but by the Pope himself, meant that this request actually came directly from Henry, the Holy Roman Emperor.
Yep.
Drogo didn't need much convincing to accept the demands, for it was Henry himself who made him Duke of Apulia and Calabria.
So, Drogo's like, okay, Henry wants us to stop raiding. Fine, we'll fucking stop raiding. Henry's cool. Henry was at my wedding, or my cousin's wedding. You know, like he bought me a beer or two, and you know, also gave me most of my political power. So, yeah, no, I won't fuck with him.
The crafty Norman knew not to bite the hand that fed him, not yet, at least. But while Drogo was the most powerful of the Norman lords, in practice some warbands did not recognize his authority.
So they went and were like, hey, Drogo, stop doing that shit. And Drogo's like, okay. But then other people are like, well, you're not really king. I have to listen to you.
Worse, in August 1051, he was assassinated, possibly a victim of a Byzantine conspiracy, organized as part of their planned reconquest of Apulia. After a brief interregnum, Drogo's younger brother, Humphrey de Hauteville, was chosen as his successor. A hot-tempered man bent on revenge for his brother's death, Humphrey escalated the violent Norman raids in Benevento.
So yeah, Drogo just got fucking killed. So now Humphrey's in charge, and Humphrey isn't really interested in toning down the raids.
This unnerved the Pope, and he requested Henry's aid. The Emperor did not recognize the threat, but Leo was not left to fend for himself. Count of Winterthur, Adalbert II, supplied 700 Swabian infantry, famous for their two-handed swords.
Excuse me.
They were joined by more men sent by other German lords. Many Italian and Lombard lords pledged their support, understanding that siding with Leo was their best bet against the Normans, with groups of fighters sent by barons from...
So, like, a lot of these guys, they're like, well, I don't necessarily like Leo, but Humphrey's gonna fuck us up, so we need to stop him.
Apulia, Gaeta, Campania, Molise, Abruzzo, and Latinum. The Byzantine Emperor Constantine IX also sided with Leo, aiming to consolidate his position in Apulia once the Normans were expelled.
So yeah, even fucking Constantine over here. Hey, Space. Good to see you. Even Constantine's like, yeah, no, Normans aren't too cool. So yeah, let's get rid of them. Checking out what's going on here. That's fair. We're doing some research for... I want to do a similar thing to what this channel does, History March. Or Marsh. So, we're looking into some historical conflicts, specifically ones on this channel, seeing how they're presented, and we're going to see if we can learn something to fabricate our own fictional event, and to possibly make a video in a similar vein.
Catapan of Italy, Argyrus, reached out to the Pope, informing him they had a mutual interest in the dispersing of the rowdy adventurers.
So, Byzantines and these guys typically don't get along too well, but he's like, no, let's just beat the shit out of Humphrey. We saw headless bodies on the ground, along with horses knocked down with their own knights. Neat. Good job, William.
The Pope and Argyrus agreed to join forces and march on the Normans. The papal army gathered at Benevento in the first week of June 1053. From there, Leo marshaled his 6,000 men towards the meeting point at Siponto on the Adriatic coast, where he was to wait the arrival of Argyrus's host. Humphrey learned of the two coalition armies approaching from different sides. If they were to link up, they would undoubtedly overwhelm the Normans. He had to intercept the papal host before the Byzantines arrived.
So Humphrey's like, hey, war on two fronts sucks, but war on a massive front is unwinnable for us. So if we beat the shit out of the Pope, that's going to cripple a lot of support, and we know that this guy isn't going to have the balls to come after us on his own. So, Leo's the target.
Time was of the essence. Humphrey called on Robert and Richard to quickly muster whatever troops they could.
So he's like, you guys, I don't give a shit who you think is in charge. I'm in charge now. We need to beat him up or we're all dead. And they're like, yeah, okay. So they do.
Had recruited a handful of Slavic mercenaries. The rendezvous point was the stronghold of Troia. There, some 3,000 horsemen and 500 infantry met, and Humphrey led them north in search of the papal army.
So, they know around where the papal army's going to be. They don't actually know where specifically, so they can't choose their battleground too well. And they're spurred on by the fact that as soon as Argyrus gets over, it's over. Like, you ain't doing shit. Excuse me. Which brings us to the start of the video.
The Pope's army, commanded by Rudolf of Benevento, reached the small village of Civitate and set up camp outside its walls. They fielded a force of around 6,000 soldiers, both cavalry and infantry.
The shark with a Pope helmet. No!
Scouts informed the Norman leadership of the papal
Why?
army's whereabouts. Encamped close by beyond a small elevation, Humphrey and his fellow commanders realized that with 3,000 horsemen and 500 infantry, the odds were heavily stacked.
The video is low.
Them.
Thank you for actually telling me. We've been doing this for how many hours and nobody's said a thing?
To make matters worse, the Norman army was short on supplies, and many in their ranks suffered from malnourishment. Understanding the danger they faced due to attrition, and aware of the uneasiness the Norman warriors felt about taking up arms against a supreme pontiff, Humphrey's commanders sent an envoy to the Pope to request a truce, even proposing they would swear fealty to the Holy Father. But the papal commanders refused to open negotiations.
So, Humphrey shows up and he's like, you know what? We can stop this fight before it really begins. Let's just see what we can do. And they're like, hey, we'll swear fealty. We'll do whatever you want. We don't want to fight you. And the Pope's like, yeah, but I'm going to win this fight anyway, so get fucked, nerd. Okay, we'll meet with that. Wojtek! For fuck's sake! My cat's on my keyboard again. Buddy, really? Really? You're just gonna stare me down as you insert a claw into my foot? The Pope loses. We don't know that. Ignore the title.
A hand over their enemies. But getting weaker the longer they waited, the Normans decided to take the initiative.
So, Normans have worse numbers, and they're tired, and they are, again, malnourished, because they're out of supplies. So, is one of these about a battle featuring the original Wojtek? I don't believe so. Mainly because that fight, it wasn't necessarily... Like, it wasn't some strategic genius that won it. It was just a decent plan that worked out and a bear that fucking showed up to help. But yeah, there probably is one. Only issue is it might feature a swastika, and I'm not allowed to show those on stream.
They split their heavily outnumbered army into 3 divisions. 1,000 heavy cavalry, commanded by Richard of Aversia, held the right wing. 1,000 of Humphrey's footmen and archers manned the center. And Robert Guiscard's 1,000 cavalry, with roughly 500 Slavic infantry, held the left wing.
A bear? Oh yeah, Wojtek the Bear. It's a great story. I've told it a lot of times. I'll tell it a lot more. I'll probably tell it after this video if you want.
Given how disadvantaged
I named my
the
cat
Normans
after him.
were, the papal leadership may have been surprised to see them deploying in front of Civitate. The Pope remained in the town itself, watching from the walls together with his bishops. His army deployed into 2 divisions.
So again, the Normans have very little morale here. Let's use stealth while traveling at night and day. I mean, typically you wanted to be low profile unless you're trying to make a statement. So yeah, they try to be low profile while on march. Yeah, the Normans do not have an advantage when it comes to morale right now. They're fighting someone they don't actually want to fight, the fucking Pope. They're fighting a huge force. They've got mercenaries, which tend to not be in it till the end, unless you're paying them a fucking lot. So, we'll see how it works out. They did divide into 3. Formations win battles.
The heavy Swabian infantry held the right flank towards the center.
These are not Crusaders, Cal. This is not the Holy Land. This is not the time period. This is 1053. I don't fucking know the years the Crusades happened. Oh my god.
Deployed in a long, thin line. Behind them stood the lesser-trained German troops. The Italian and Lombard footmen and cavalry, commanded by Rudolf of Benevento, manned the left in a
Fuck you,
scattered
Rudolph.
loose formation. Richard of Aversia opened the Battle of Civitate by charging against the Italian contingent. The Norman cavalry started at a slow trot, then gradually picked up speed, bearing down on the Italo-Lombard lines. As Richard's horsemen smashed into the opposing infantry, the papal vanguard nearly broke from the pure shock of the charge.
So yeah, they go fucking slamming into them, and they hit hard. So from the shock of it alone, they nearly break through with their first assault. That's fucking good. Because again, if you hit them on the side, you can hit them on the front. When was this? 1053.
In the second line, Rudolf of Benevento's men held their ground, standing firm in formation.
Bring all the big bulky armor, not good for stealth.
Broke out.
Oh yeah, well, typically if a knight's on the march, he's going to be on horseback. Yeah, you don't sneak around in plate armor.
In this sector of the field. During this time, the heavy Swabian right flank began their march towards the elevation. Despite their malnourishment and lack of numbers, the Normans soon appeared to have the upper hand in combat. As Rudolf's vanguard resisted hopelessly, His rear guard turned around and fled back to their encampments.
So, the fucking Normans come crashing in. They kill a shit ton of people with their first attack. They also did small wars. Ah, fair. So yeah, no, I'll concede on that, Cal. I'll concede on the time period. But you're wrong about the location. Yeah. 50 years ain't fuck all. So, I apologize for getting that part wrong. Anyways, yeah, the Normans smash through at this start. They cause a lot of psychological issues. The rest of the army starts marching forward without him. And despite them being really weakened from malnourishment, lack of rest, and so forth, they're fucking winning from actual skill alone. And that's making some of these guys take a look at it and go, nope, and run away.
Many of these panicked soldiers fled the battlefield altogether. As the fight continued, the Swabians advanced against the Norman center, seizing the high ground. Humphrey's archers met them with an...
So, these guys are pushing this way. They know that they have to finish these guys if they want to come back around, because if they don't, then they get bum rushed. Bum rushing sucks. Well, in a military sense, bum rushing sucks. And once they get them out, they can do an attack from behind, and hey, it's pain! Woo! Hey, Meg! So now these guys are going towards this, this is probably just pain. That's good enough for me, bud. They're going towards the high ground. Which, you know, normally you'd want your archers to take the high ground, but we'll see what happens here.
Enfilade of arrows while his infantry advanced. The hail of projectiles chipped away at the Swabian vanguard as the Norman infantry rushed forward. The shields and swords soon met in a bitter melee as the Humphrey's men tried to maneuver to outflank the enemy. The Swabians enjoyed a slight upper hand against Humphrey's men,
nice,
but the combat remained relatively balanced until Robert's cavalry launched a massed attack.
So, despite the Pope's crew having way better numbers, these guys are holding their own. And then Robert comes in.
Against the unprotected Swabian right flank. The poorly equipped German troops held in the rear panicked and immediately fled upon Robert's arrival.
Poorly equipped, poorly trained. They see these big fuckers running up. They saw how they destroyed a crew up here. They don't want anything to be part of that. If you scare them off, that's as good as killing them in the short term.
This relieved much.
In some cases, it's better than killing them. Purely because then the rest of them are like, well, they ran, so I could run too. And then we could totally get another assault planned with all the people who ran away. Because it was a retreat. Totally. We definitely won't be convicted of treason.
Of the pressure against Humphrey and cemented the fate of the Swabians, who continued to hold out.
So yeah, these other guys see all their buddies running, and they're like, you know what? Yeah, let's go. So now these people who are locked in combat, there ain't shit they can do. All the guys who were supposed to back them up just ran away. And they can't run away. They've got a guy right in front of them trying to beat the shit out of them. So they're dead. These 4 squares here are just dead. There, I turned it up a little bit.
Bravely, despite the odds turning against them. Eventually, Richard's army proved the decisive factor. Rudolph was unable to rally his forces as his flank broke down.
So you see, these guys finally get running away. They're not good knights. Those guys aren't knights. They're just generic men-at-arms. They are poorly equipped, poorly trained, and they ain't being paid fuck all. So they have almost every reason to run away. So now that they've beaten the shit out of these guys up here, the cavalry charge has a nice open plain to run and beat the shit out of the back line. And they crash.
They freed up cavalry to launch a charge against the Swabians. The Norman horsemen stormed against the knights, who now were truly surrounded with no way out. The Swabians put up a bitter but hopeless fight. They chose rather to die than to turn tail. Such was their bravery that they were far more formidable like this than when riding on horseback. William Apulia about the Swabian infantry.
He-Man at arms.
There are no reliable sources about the casualty figures, although it is certain a massacre took place, if only for the fact the Swabians were lauded, both by friend and foe, for their courage and determination, often refusing to retreat, but preferring to die sword in hand.
This is why you charge money when someone wants you to fight for them. If you are well, first off, they sometimes would pay, but if you're a peasant and a noble tells you, hey, you're in my fucking army now, you are in their fucking army now, and you are not saying no. Like, you do not have that option.
The Norman victory at the Battle of Civitate had far-reaching consequences. After a brief siege of the town, the Normans captured the Pope. In a likely record of events, the local population threw him out, understanding that by having the Pope within the walls of the city, they would face the devastation and slaughter.
So the Pope was chilling in the city watching all this go down, unless enough peasants tell him to fuck off. Yeah, because then you have the Battle of Hemmingstead. And, that didn't go too well for the, non-peasants. I'm aware mercenaries are a gray area. Oh, it's not even that. It's purely, you gotta pay your own soldiers. So yeah, the Pope was just chilling in the city, and the people inside grabbed him, chucked him outside, and was like, yeah, you guys can have him. Because otherwise, you know, Humphrey's gonna beat the shit out of him. So what can we learn from this? Because part of it is if you start eating, you finish your food.
Altogether, an enfilade.
As in, these guys drove them off, took them out, and then were able to launch a coordinated cavalry charge together to get back. You let the enemy come to you, which is what they did mostly. They had them do their marching up the hill, and then these guys just fucking started firing at them. And you meet them. They deployed their archers in front of their melee units. If you don't eat meat, you can't have any pudding. Well, yeah, how can you have your pudding if you don't eat your meat? And just, with this, see how many units they have here right now. That's what happens when they fucking run. I don't care how many guys you fielded. If they run away, they aren't worth shit to you. So yeah. What we're seeing here is that when you're fighting a foe with greater numbers, if you can get them to retreat, you are functionally fighting the same numbers. And if you're fighting the same numbers, you have a fighting chance. Ronsvo Pass, Pliska, Otto's Grace Triumph. Come here. Always bring more people. If you can, yeah. Yeah, if you have the option of more, do more typically. If your supply line can sustain it. Because if it can't, then you're fucked. Hi, Wojtek. Come here. Round my lap. Or just right beside me, awkwardly. Yeah. No, don't lay on the fucking keyboard. Or a Glock. That is also true. Ow, Wojtek, why? Why are you mean? Less numbers and they can sometimes surrender. Yeah, but... yeah. When the king fights like a lion, this could work for Mr. Poop. I want to see the cat. I have put up a short of Wojtek. Right there. Oh, I can't I can't actually play that because that's copyright music, but yeah. The guy who invented the Glock was also heavily involved in horse breeding. Now, when you say involved, do you mean like scientifically or recreationally? Hey guys, this is a regretfully mined PSA. Please don't fuck your horse. Bert's Battles. That's cool. Like, this is cool. I'll subscribe.
The close of 1135 had witnessed both the death and coronation of a king. Stephen, maternal grandson of William the Conqueror, sat uncomfortably upon the throne of England, having put down several minor risings up to 1138. In that very year, a northern army had also beaten back the larger
kingdom
host
is
of
the
David,
people,
King of
not
Scots,
the king.
at the Battle of the Standard. Yet, despite several risings, Stephen's crown appeared relatively secure in these initial rocky years.
Hey, Anonymous.
11.
We are doing a... Sorry, space. I am going to turn the volume down on it. I need to be able to think. We're doing a deep dive on some historical conflicts, specifically from History March, because they have a cool style of video. And I want to do something similar, but I need to actually learn a bit more about some of these tactics. Because otherwise, I'm just going to be talking out of my ass. Ryan Kelly, of fucking course.
38, however, would with hindsight be a critical year that transformed the uneasy and hard-won peace in the kingdom into a full
Shut the fuck up about One Piece.
Destiny of England. We all know history repeats itself.
No, I don't want your sponsor, Dad.
Crown, the Empress Matilda, had held little real
Turn
hope
down
of
your mic.
enforcing her claim to her father's throne.
What are you saying?
Initial years, holding court in southern Normandy. Her husband Geoffrey, Count of Anjou, balked at supplying men and funds to back what seemed to be
There, it's back
a
up to what it
forlorn
was.
endeavor. Matilda, despite oaths to uphold her succession in 1127, had no major support in England itself. No major noble had declared for her.
That's fair,
Though
Anonymous.
in this key year,
Sorry
her
for
prospects would
making
be
a really
dramatically
loud sound.
transformed by the actions of one man. Matilda was not the only prominent child of King Henry I. Henry had had many bastard children, the greatest of which was Robert, whom he
Henry
made Earl of
fucked.
Gloucester in the early 1120s. Robert.
So yeah, Henry's got a bunch of kids. Why am I skipping this? This does... Like, you do need to understand why these things happened. It's just about as important as knowing how.
Succession after the fact, being confirmed in his lands and titles by the latter. He had accompanied his lord to the siege of Exeter, and was even present with his king in Normandy in 1137 to fight Matilda's husband, Geoffrey.
Tubing today.
According
Jeez.
to William of Malmesbury, Robert had...
Tube flipped on my head. I have a headache. Are you dizzy? Or like nauseous? I'm all good. Okay. I'll trust your judgment.
had always intended to support his half-sister's claim to the crown, though this is arguable. According to this toxic mix of resentment that already existed between the two men, Robert also begrudged the royal favour shown to other major figures, like the Beaumont brothers and William of Ypres, Stephen's loyal Flemish mercenary.
I've hit my head
captain.
harder. Oh.
The catalyst for Robert's overt defection to Matilda came in this year. William of Malmesbury writes that Stephen, fearing this great lord was already in contact with and on the verge of defecting to the Angevin cause, ordered Robert's hated rival William of Ypres to ambush and capture him. If true, the attempt was a catastrophic failure. What's more, Stephen was forced to agree a 3-year truce with Geoffrey, following the effective disintegration of his own army near Lisieux in the same year. Having settled matters in Normandy, Stephen took ship to England, never returning to the duchy. Robert ominously remained, perhaps consulting with other Angevin sympathizers, including King Stephen's old pal Baldwin de Redvers, before in May of 1138, he finally issued his diffidatio. The public rejection of Stephen resulted in the latter's confiscation of Robert's English lands, though actually enforcing this was a different matter. By the autumn of 1138, the Empress Matilda had joined Robert in northern Normandy. the two preparing their forces throughout the winter and into the spring of 1139. By the summer of that year, all was set for the Matildine phase of the war to commence. However, their plans may have been complicated by the capture of Dover by Stephen's Queen Matilda.
So basically, Matilda was debatably next in line for the throne. Stephen was debatably next in line as well. He kicked Matilda out, and Matilda's like, hey, fuck you. No. Also, a lot of England didn't like Stephen. He was not very popular.
Forcing the Angevin party to be creative in their route to England. Matilda and Robert would arrive at Arundel on the 30th of September, though ahead of them went the irascible Baldwin de Redvius. Baldwin had already rebelled and been defeated by Stephen twice in 1136, losing Exeter and the Isle of Wight, and therefore naturally sided with the Angevins thereafter. He landed at Wareham in early August, which had been Earl Robert's but had been taken by the king. Here he was barred entry, though he was admitted to Corfe Castle nearby. King Stephen marched to besiege him there, yet no sooner had he done so did Matilda and Robert slip into Arundel, ostensibly at the invitation of the Queen Dowager and the pair's stepmother, Adeliza. The two were accompanied by just 140 knights that added to the seemingly benign nature of the landing. Earl Robert wasted no time in riding hard for his own lands, with an escort of about a dozen knights, whereas Matilda remained, as it turned out, to face the army of her royal cousin. Robert did manage to reach Bristol and the heartland of his support, though...
Oh my god. So yeah,
on the way he may have been halted by the men of Henry of Blois, who interestingly allowed his passage and may have agreed some kind of deal with the rebellious Earl. In the event, Henry would play an important role in events.
I want to add some sort of commentary, but the simple fact of the matter is, yeah.
At Arundel and beyond. To modernize, Stephen's blockade of his rival in Arundel appeared to end the conflict before it had truly begun. However, it's likely Stephen saw Robert as the true threat to his position. His cousin had the formal excuse of invitation from another senior royal, and no army to speak of within Arundel itself. The details are lost to time, but the aforementioned Henry of Blois, Bishop of Winchester, and the king's younger brother, brokered an agreement whereby Matilda was permitted safe conduct into Robert's sphere of control. It is possible that the deal stipulated Matilda's agreement not to take up arms against him. If so, this was a pledge later broken. It is also true to say that if Arundel had been besieged and resisted, Stephen's time, treasure, and resources would have been focused there, rather than on the greater threat of a free and recruiting Robert of Gloucester. Whatever the truth, Matilda was ultimately escorted to Bristol, the seat of Angevin control. Thus, by the fall of 1139, the boundaries had been mostly set.
There's a lot of political shit with this. Let's see if things change.
The exact sequence of events during this time is not clear. Orderic Vitalis's dramatic account of the half-brothers seizing the whole castle by a ruse may in actuality mask a more complicated situation. Ranulf was granted the constableship of the castle, but only occupied Luce's tower, a part of the castle, while Stephen's men held the rest. This in itself may have irritated the irascible Earl of Chester. A further factor was the presence of the bishop, Alexander, who himself had fortified his own cathedral and was enhancing his own power base within the city. Though unclear whether at this stage Stephen's men occupied the entirety of the castle or excluding Lucy's tower, Now Ordric's account of the catalyst of hostilities makes more sense. The two men entered Lincoln Castle on the pretext of retrieving their visiting wives, Ranulph gaining entry with just a few men, before overwhelming the guards and throwing open the gates to de Romer's party, who had been in hiding nearby.
So if I'm understanding this right, from skipping to the middle of it and losing all context, these guys weren't given much power, were treated relatively poorly, so they're like, you know what, fuck it, let's just take shit. And they took shit. But I don't know, I'm not... It's getting late in the stream, so I'm low on my patience.
The castle was thus now in the hands of the disgruntled siblings, but the city itself was mostly hostile. The men of Lincoln thus sent word south for aid from King Stephen. Stephen, with his usual rapidity, assembled a force and marched to confront this latest affront to his authority. Reaching the city by the end of Christmas 1140, Stephen set about pounding the garrison with his siege engines, his men having initially captured 17 knights who had been relaxing in the city as he entered it. Though blockading the rebels with the enthusiastic support of the city folk, Stephen was unable to prevent the flight of Ranulph himself, who left his half-brother and his own wife to ride hard for Cheshire, where he could assemble reinforcements. Simultaneously, word was sent to Robert informing him that his daughter was now besieged in Lincoln Castle. Ranulph additionally naturally swore fealty to Matilda in return for aid, though in reality he may have had little choice. In response, Earl Robert, along with Miles of Gloucester, mustered their own army in support, including many disinherited nobles who had also eagerly joined their ranks, as well as a large force of Welshmen.
So yeah, Stephen kind of fucked over some nobles. Really pissed them off, so it was kind of easy for Matilda to get a foothold. Granted, those guys, if I recall correctly, supported Matilda's claim to the throne initially, and that's why Stephen, you know, treated them poorly. But yeah.
Gloucester's force then headed north. The Empress Matilda, in whose name both Robert and Ranulph fought, could only await tidings of events within her base at Gloucester. The Angevin host, jointly led by Robert, Miles, and Ranulph, appeared just south of Lincoln on February 1st of 1141, marching from the west across the Witham River. Evil portents supposedly plagued the king, the night before battle witnessing a foul storm of hail, rain, as well as the starker signs of divine disapproval in thunder and lightning. In a service on the very day of battle itself, the candle the king held for his part in proceedings broke apart in his hands, its flame snuffed out, and perhaps a dark harbinger of things to come. Yet if this was so, King Stephen remained resolute, and despite his advice...
When it comes to British history, especially around medieval periods, if they say anything crazy happened, I want to make it very clear, I'm not educated on the subject very well, but fuck do they lie a lot. Like, the people who wrote it at the time. Like, it's quite clear with a lot of it, they just wanted to sound cool. I don't know, man. People in the medieval times were kind of douchey when it came to keeping records.
As urging his withdrawal in the face of the larger Angevin force, the king elected to stand and fight. Having concluded their respective speeches and insults to their foes, each army arrayed themselves in similar formations of 3 groups, or battles. King Stephen had his knights dismounted and formed around himself on foot in the largest group, along with some militiamen of Lincoln in support.
The ones
It's
who
also
win tell the
likely
story.
many militiamen
Yep.
remained in the city itself to deal with any sortie from the castle.
Guys.
The left wing of Stephen's army was commanded by the Earl of York, along with William of Ypres, with his right comprising a small band of earls
William
and
of
their
Ypres.
retinues. These two formations made up of small amounts of cavalry.
Also, do you see?
Mirroring Stephen's central battle was Robert of Gloucester's. Robert too had dismounted many of his knights in his group. The exact formation and composition of the Angevin army in particular is tricky, the sources differing on exact placement. However, it appears Welshmen were present on both wings in the van position, marching slightly ahead. The Angevin cavalry wings were led by Ranulf and likely Miles of...
Now, personally, I would want an archer contingent, or cavalry maybe, to be located at these gates. And I'd try to draw them in closer so that then you can hit them from behind with that. Again, don't know how well that would work, because I'm not very good at actually leading an enemy.
Gloucester, respectively. The first action of the battle saw these poorly armed Welshmen quickly driven from the field by the attacks of both royal wings.
10,000 trained attack wasps. To be fair, I think that would work pretty nicely. So yeah, superior armaments win the fight in this case, at least for those two wings. However, they're being driven back towards what they got.
These brave Welshmen likely stood little chance against the charge of trained, better equipped, and determined knights.
Yeah.
However, though the Angevin infantry was driven from the field, the wings following on behind remained resolute in meeting the royalists.
So, when your guys run away, you know what you have? Less guys. But they hit them, and while they didn't do a lot, they did some. So this is good. And they broke up the momentum of the charge. That helps. That does help a lot.
It was now the turn of Stephen's wings to take to flight. Though details are once more sketchy, it appears both wings had already conceded that defeat was probable. Indeed, Ranulf's engagement of Stephen's left wing may have been preceded by arrow volleys that, in addition to the general disorder created from the rout of the Welsh, made William of Ypres' wing easy meat for Ranulf's men.
So, yeah, the Welsh being defeated kind of worked in the green dude's favor, because then these guys were chasing him, and you're only going at the speed of the guys who are running from you, and that gives you plenty of time to pound arrows into them. And they're not really focused on you, they're focused on running down these guys that are fleeing. So that works out pretty well. So Ranulf, he had a good time.
Similarly, the opposite wing was also driven to flight. King Stephen, however...
And you don't necessarily need to finish your food if you've still got a mouthful. And they had a mouthful.
...remained rooted in position. Though the exact sequence
so they
of
run
events
around.
on the wings is unclear, the conclusion of events is not. King Stephen now doggedly fought off the Angevins as they pressed in on all sides, one source writing that the assaults were like an attack all around a castle. Some lords had remained at their king's side, Stephen fighting ferociously with his sword, men said to recoil from his terrible arm. When the king's very sword broke in the melee, a man of Lincoln handed his king a battle axe with which he continued to fight on like a cornered wild boar.
And again, Fucking medieval people from history. Stephen fought until his sword broke, and then one of his men handed him an axe, and he fought with that shit too. And when that broke, he fought with his fists, and when they broke, he was kicking them. And when the legs fell off, he bit their ankles. Like, whatever, man. You don't have to fucking hype them up. I mean, I guess I would want to hype someone up too, to be able to say, okay, I won a really cool battle against him. Or to say, hey, I supported this guy who was really badass.
Indeed, Robert of Torigny wrote that the king kept his ground like a lion, standing...
All extra moments could be the YouTube maker. Oh, absolutely. But this is an example. So we're going to take this as an example. Because that was the purpose of this whole thing.
Single-handed in field. Alas, even this sturdy
weapon... Oh, if you're talking about the axe thing, no, that is something that is recorded. Like the... I turned the volume up for you. You should be listening to this.
Broke with overuse. The king eventually felled ingloriously with a stone, stunning him long enough to be taken by one of Earl Robert's household men. Robert ordered that his royal cousin be left unharmed, though the latter complained loudly that this was no way to treat a king. As for the unfortunate men of Lincoln, they could expect no such leniency from the victors. Around 500 drowned attempting to swim the nearby river, more than had fallen to the Angevins in Malay. The town itself was also ravaged, with churches and houses set ablaze. For King Stephen, the day was an undoubted catastrophe. Robert had him taken before Matilda herself in Gloucester, before being transferred to the Angevin stronghold of Bristol. What words were spoken during this meeting are unfortunately lost to history, though it's likely the Empress emphasized her own superior claim, yet treated Stephen with all the respect and courtesy due to an anointed monarch. Though confined to Bristol, Stephen was initially permitted some liberty within the area.
So, what did we learn? Well, from earlier on, from the parts we skipped, we learned that you don't want to fucking leave loose ends. Pull a General Shepherd and burn him. From the battle itself, we've learned that having a unit flee isn't necessarily the worst thing that can happen. Because, as the example suggested, for the record, it was not documented, but it is speculated that there might have been arrow volleys unleashed as they were going after these relatively disposable soldiers. Do not be a right bitch to the people around you. Yeah. Also, fucking Steven, man. Like, you don't see me complaining about using a fucking sword that's broken. Wait, shit, my sword's still outside. Oh, no, I need to grab that. I put sealant on it today, so it should be good. Anyways, I think we've learned a fair bit tonight. And I think I have an idea of where to take things. Is it rust protected? Nothing's truly rust protected. Swords suck ass, though, but for lore reasons, yours is awesome. Oh yeah, no. Like, When it comes to practicality, swords typically are not really what you want. Especially if the enemy has any sort of armor whatsoever. But they're cool. And mine is extra cool. Well, ladies, gentlemen, and otherwise, I think I might call it there. I'm tired. Titanium and steel mixture code that looks super white and shiny gold. What? Long, sharp, pointy stick is usually the best thing. Yeah. And when it's not that, it's heavy stick. Spears and clubs have carried civilization, and it bothers me that they carried it for so fucking long. I don't like them. What did I miss today? Oh, well, I drove 10 hours. Go get your sword. Yeah. If it gives you range and it's wieldable pretty easily, it's the best. And spears are. Yeah, they're... And easy to manufacture. And yeah, like... With it, yeah, range, mass, and a concentrated force. And a small shield like the Romans did. I think you're thinking Greeks. Romans tended to have their tower shields, if I'm not mistaken. Then again, I don't know fuck from shit when it comes to them. And throwable. Maybe. They are similar in weaponry. Yeah. Well, a javelin's throwable. A spear is... I mean, I guess you can still throw a spear, but it's typically a lot more effective to just poke. All right. There we are. Shout out to History Marsh. A pocky stick. Yeah, I'll just take a bite. Raid. What? Shadow Legends? Like, everything's throwable, you just shouldn't. Pocky. Do you mean pokey? Pocky's good. Yeah. Wojtek's sitting like a human. And it bothers me a lot. Giant Pocky's awesome. Dang. Okay, I'm gonna go grab my sword before I forget. Watch the guy use a bow to launch a shovel. I need to dig. Can you get a picture of Wojtek? Like I said, I do have a short up on the channel of him. So there's plenty of pictures. And if you just go in there, go to shorts, and scroll down, should be able to find it. It's right before Wef was drinking mayo and right after I talked about killing myself. In a funny way, for the record. And also after when a caveman did 9/11. Ow! Oh, Wojtek, why? Fuck's sake, I'm bleeding again. Bye.